Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you another RWBY theory video. This one revolving around what the purpose of the Rusted Knight from The Girl Who Fell Through the World may have been, and why exactly has Jean adopted this role as his own purpose. So, in the brief story beats that we were told about The Girl Who Fell Through the World, in episode 2, we learn the order in which Alex, and eventually Team RWBY, performed specific actions in specific quadrants. Alex fell from the sky, met the Hunter Mice, got trapped in vines, fought the Jabberwocker, and had her knife stolen by Jinxie. All of this happened within the Jungle Quadrant. She stole her knife back from Jinxie, created a riot in the town, beat the Red King in a board game, and met the Curious Cat, all of which happens in the Crimson Acre. And she met the Rusted Knight, the Lively Carpenter, and managed to get home, all of which would have happened between the King's Castle and the tree, whether that be purely the Mushroom Forest, or she deviated to some other acres during the story. We don't know just yet. However, most of those we don't have definitive parallels to yet. The one that we do have a parallel with is the Rusted Knight, who came to save Team RWBY from a Jabberwocker attack at the night market, as they were attempting to get all the ingredients needed for a Grogurt parfait. Now, looking back at Alice in Wonderland, we know Alice herself is the one who shrinks down, meaning that assuming the parallels between Alex and Team RWBY's role are as one-to-one as we are expecting, that means that at one point Alex must have made her way to the night market in the attempts of getting the Grogurt parfait, only for it to be attacked by a Jabberwocker and the Rusted Knight to save her. Which means that it is the Rusted Knight's purpose to protect the market and arrive just in the nick of time to help the visitor character escape the attack, fighting off the singular Jabberwocker that is in the story. However, as we now know, Neo has thrown a spanner in the works, meaning that there are now multiple Jabberwockers, and the Rusted Knight had to flee the battle with this current batch of visitors, which means that his purpose was probably to defeat the Jabberwocker in this attack using the specialized sword that he wields, and then continue on the journey with the visitors and the cat. Now yes, there are some issues with this theory so far, mainly the idea that Jean is filling a previously existing role, while also seemingly retaining his memories of his life on Remnant, whereas the Curious Cat in that same episode said that ascending, sure, it turns a person into who they wish they could have been in their previous life, whether that be the same person or a completely different one. However, it takes their memories and starts them off anew in this existing role. Of course, with the caveat that a part of them does still remember, that being their heart. So, while the Red King may have had all the memories of meeting Alex and losing to her, the Red Prince has the hatred in his heart from having been cheated against in that game in his previous iteration. However, with Jean and the specific role that he is adopted, there can be arguments that this is a special case. Firstly, assuming that the Ever After is actually stuck in what is essentially a time loop, that being everything that happens with a visitor will happen with the next visitor, and the next visitor, and the next visitor, while the actual time in the ever after does still progress, that means that every noted role in that story must exist in the next iteration of the story. So the hunter mice must always be in that first quadrant to greet the visitor and trap them. Jinxie must always be in that first quadrant at the start of the story to steal their weapon. The Jabberwocker must always make its first presence known during that acre. The Red Prince must always be at his castle to play the board game against the visitor. The Rusted Knight must always be at the night market to save the visitor. So what happens if one of these roles isn't available? Meaning either they have lost the battle with the Jabberwocker and been consumed, meaning they aren't going to return at all, or they have decided that this role is no longer for them, been sent back to the tree, and then come back as a new character, leaving that role empty. Obviously, that means that the Ever After will have to take it upon itself to find a new candidate to fill that role. Maybe that could be the current visitor who is approaching that specific part of the story where they would need that role to be in place and is in such a poor mental standing that they would jump at the blacksmith offer to be remade into something better. Next, considering this is Jean we're talking about, and everything that happened right before he fell into the ever after, we really need to look at what would be going through his mind were he to actually meet the blacksmith. Because if we look at his track record, he couldn't save Pyrrha. He had to call up Ruby, tell her his request, hope she'd be able to make it to Pyrrha in time, and she wasn't. If he'd have been a better fighter, if he hadn't have been distracted, maybe that wouldn't have happened with Crow. He didn't really manage to do anything in that fight against Tyrion. If he'd have been able to help more, been a better fighter, been able to be in the right place in the right time, he might have been able to stop Crow from being poisoned. Weiss. Yes, he did manage to heal her after the fight. If he had been a better fighter against Cinder, she never would have disarmed him, seen his feelings for Weiss, and used them to hurt him, so he wouldn't have needed to heal her in the first place. Oscar. In the Atlas dorms, the whole team was late in reaching Oscar's dorm room to protect him from Neo's attack. However, had Neo not been playing around, that would have been another friend that got severely injured because Jean was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Oscar again. None of them were able to stop him from being captured by the Hound. So if Jean had have been a better fighter, had have been able to use his strategic mind more, he may have been able to find a way to stop the Hound from taking him, or at least found a way to stop the Hound from flying off with him after the chase. Hazel. Well, definitely not his friend. He was still unable to do anything in that fight against Salem other than run away while Hazel sacrificed himself to save them. Team RWBY. He wasn't even aware of most of them falling off the platform, and the one person that he was aware of, he wasn't able to do anything to prevent them from falling. And finally, Penny. He wasn't able to stop her from being gravely injured in their fight against Cinder, and had to take her own life using his blade, and then wasn't able to do anything in the fight after that fact to avenge her. Now, while I'm not saying that I blame him for any of this, none of the characters blame him for any of this because they couldn't do anything in that moment either. However, he blames him for those failures. And so it's most likely that if he were to meet the blacksmith, was given the offer of this legendary hero from the story that he's known since childhood, and was reasoned that he could use his role to always be there in time to save someone, to save his friends when they come through. Of course he would jump at that opportunity. To be the person to arrive in the nick of time, to be the hero that fights off the monster, saves the market from its attack, and then safely guides them the rest of the way through the journey. Sounds exactly like the person who had dreams of being the hero ever since he was a child. So much that he literally cheated his way into those dreams becoming reality. So you've got a being from another world, one that specifically doesn't have the ascension aspect. And so it's impossible to know whether the same results of ascension would still apply in the exact same way to this person whose truest desire is to be the hero that can fight for and save everyone he cares about. And you've got a role that's main purpose is to show up in the nick of time to save the visitor and the market goers from the big bad of the story that has recently been vacated. And then you fuse them together, suddenly you've got Jean, the Rusted Knight, a well-known hero who is extremely competent in a fight and whose heart remembers his friends so well that it bypassed the memory reset, at least in that specific aspect. There's also the fact that a person's feelings in that aspect may not even be considered in the ascension process. Because another thing that we've not really seen in the Ever After is friendship. Sure, the mice live in a tribe. They go out, gather food, bring it back for the collective. But little did they know what a friend was before Ruby met them. And that in and of itself may have overpowered everything, which is why Jean remembers who he does. Anyway, it's most likely that in the next episode of the show, that being episode 6 of volume 9, we're probably going to get Jean's backstory in the Ever After. Probably going to find out which position he landed in the Ever After, whether that be before Alex, during Alex's story, after Alex, well in the future of the Ever After, and got sent back. Who knows? We're probably going to find that out the next episode. We're probably going to find out the path he took, how far through the story he got, whether he encountered the old version of the Rusted Knight. So all of this could be invalidated, but I guess we'll just have to find out when it comes out. I'll catch you in the next one.